Welcome back. Josh here, and this is going to be a conversation, a collection of all of the X-Men movies, or the X-Men franchise. Since 1963, the X-Men have been a prolific part of comic book history. They probably have the most famous comic book cover arts of all time, which I'll put. I make editing so much harder for myself. They've been speaking about such hot topics as sexuality, racism, AIDS, I don't know about that one, mental health, and AI and robots. Basically what I'm saying is that they were ahead of their time. The X-Men are always at odds with Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants. So most of the storylines kind of center around their eternal struggle as Magneto and Professor X have different philosophical ways of handling the mutants and the human conflict. That and robots, mutant genocide, with a dash of fucking with the future. While they've been a staple in comic book history, they were bound to leap from the pages onto the silver screen. Why do I write this? Why do I write this shit? And that's what we're here to talk about. While we wait for the introduction into sort of X-Men into the MCU universe with Deadpool and Wolverine, let's take this time. Join me. Take my hand. Come on. Here, just take it. Take my... Reach out to the screen and take my hand. And let's go through all of the X-Men movies and, X-Men related movies. Come with me and you'll see a world up here, imagine it. I don't know why I write this. I write it down and I think it's okay, but then I start doing it and it sucks. All right, let's go. This is Bryan Singer's first attempt at a superhero film. Oddly enough, it was written by the guy who voiced Solid Snake. That'd be David Hayter. This movie is about the X-Men defeating Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants, which is the plot to pretty much all of the movies. I don't know. They change it up a bit. Oh, and Wolverine is pretty much the main character in all of them. The Good. If you really take this into account, this is one of the greatest first entries of any sort of Marvel-related or superhero-related films, especially at the time. Also, the use of technology during this time is actually kind of impressive. Although at the same time, there was clearly some points in this movie where it is not like that one. Side note, was anybody else at that time when you were a kid freaking out at that exact scene where he's coming out of the water kind of looking like some sort of weird gelatin condom? And then lastly, I actually think that the biggest highlight of these movies were Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen playing Professor X and Magneto, respectively. They just own those characters, really. And their chemistry between each other, like how they interact and everything, actually feels more friendly and how you would imagine those two characters at odds with how they treat what mutant kind really is and how it lives within the world of humankind. The Bad. Wolverine's hair is fucking silly, and it's silly for a long time. I know it's comic book accurate, but look, just look at this. This looks ridiculous. The thing is that this and the sequential movies afterward, the X-Men are just kind of secondary to Wolverine. And I get that they kind of use Wolverine as a way to be able to say that there's a main character and have that specific focus. But it's proven time and time again between cartoons and the even other X-Men movies down the line that you don't need to have that one central character to make a good movie. The Funny. It's kind of hilarious that Toad was able to take out pretty much all of the X-Men. It's just... And Bryan Singer is back with an even better X-Men movie than the last. I think this will go down as one of the best sequels in all of history, trilogy history. Also, all of the regular cast is back. The story starts with the main character of the entire franchise returning. And if you think I'm talking about Cyclops or Jean Grey or Beast or Storm or Professor X or Magneto or anybody else that has so much more time, you'd be completely wrong. No, we're talking about Wolverine. He just returned from a disappointing trip to Alkali Lake, only to babysit an entire school of mutants. Things happen, Stryker appears, mutants get kidnapped, and Wolverine and the X-Men enlist the help of Magneto to help rescue Professor X before he can use the Walmart bot Cerebro to kill all the mutants. Or all the humans? The good. It's just better than the first. That in itself is an achievement. A sequel better than the original is I mean, you'd be surprised, especially with all these franchises and trilogies and everything like that, but it's really, really hard. Really hard. Just watch the beginning of X2. That beginning part with the White House and Nightcrawler running in and just taking out everybody. I believe that Nightcrawler could take out a whole bunch of people more than Toad taking out the X-Men. I'm never going to be over that. The overall story plots and moments for each one of the characters are appropriate and make more sense as part of the story and the actions that they take. So nothing is out of left field. Like you wouldn't see Magneto working as a hibachi chef. I don't know what the that even means. They also wrap those storylines and plots really nicely, considering the amount of time that they actually don't have. I don't think that the early 2000s superhero movies get enough credit for this, but the sets and production designs, they're just beautiful in the most disgusting ways possible. I wouldn't want to work in an underground fort that smells like Baba's borscht gone bad. That's the design itself. They make you feel like you can smell the TV. That doesn't, whatever. The bad. Where did Cyclops go? Do they even give a shit about this character? He's just gone. Where'd he go? The funny. Look at Wolverine's hair. Look at him right here. This looks so ridiculous. Bye-bye, Bryan Singer. And hello, Brett Ratner. Oh, no! Man, oh my God. They really f*** up the trilogy, like the last movie, the third movie of these trilogies, right? A lot of them are so fucking bad. I won't name a few. The evil humans have finally found the cure for mutants, making them shit humans again. I mean, the only reason I would give up a mutation is if it like really sucked and didn't benefit me in any way, like pissing out of my armpit. Or now I have a giant eyeball that comes out of my mouth that can see into the future for only 5 seconds. Or only manipulating matter into like scrub daddies. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, the X-Men and Magneto's gang are back to stop the evil humans. All the while, Jean Grey has returned as the Phoenix. Shit happens, and Wolvie gotta stab her. That's the plot. The good. The action scenes were actually still cool and utilized every character's like specific power, except the porcupine. Again, that's one of those useless evolutionary things. I don't know, like I feel like, why would Magneto just accept this porcupine weirdo that needs to hug people to kill? It's his decision. There's like zero intimidation with that guy. Like if he came up to me and like, you know, did that, I think I'd laugh. I would run away. That would happen. But I'd laugh. I'd laugh while running. Also, I mean, Beast is a really cool addition. Having Kelsey Grammer in this and as Beast, I think was probably like a better choice than, you know, later down the line of what we see. The bad. This felt like a precursor to a lot of superhero movies without the cool. Like Hero Shots, Pokemon Evolutions, and shocking main character deaths. Did Brett Ratner watch any of these movies? Did he watch the previous two? This was so studio handled, like in the sense that they needed to go bigger and more blockbuster-like, but didn't take into account the previous two movies. It doesn't feel like it fits with the other ones. They really did Cyclops dirty. Like, where the fuck is he? In the first movie, he's cucked all the time by Wolverine. In the second movie, he just kind of is gone. I mean, like, he was just like a bodyguard for Professor X, manipulated, then came back, loses out on Jean Grey, cucked again, and in the third one, he's cremated. I'm just saying, you deserve better, James Marsden. You deserve better. The funny. I couldn't stop laughing at Vinnie Jones's suit. Yeah, he had that like dumb meme line and everything like that, but it was his suit that, like, if you just keep looking closer and closer with these abs and these blown up like plastics and shit like that, the, you know, hair and the nipples, and it's like, I mean, he must have been so uncomfortable in those suits. Now we're really raking in the money. Okay, we went really big on Last Stand. Now we got to do origin stories. In fact, let's do an origin story of everyone's favorite Wolverine. But stepping up to the plate for directing, Gavin Hood. And guess what? One of the Game of Thrones showrunners actually wrote this, which actually makes sense after you see what the adaptation did in that show to what we got at the end. It all makes sense. This is Wolverine in his most buff state you'll ever see. This is how he got his adamantium and lost his memory in the process. No, not during the surgery, the way that we've always been told or understood, but with an adamantium bullet. Along the way, we get to meet his funny band of brothers like John Wraith, the Blob, Zero, Deadpool, and of course, Sabretooth. The Good. This movie isn't as bad as, watching it now as when it first came out. It's fun, it's stupid. I think you'll have a good time. The problem is that the material that they're working with should have been taken in a completely different direction. If James Mangold somehow was able to go back in time and be able to be part of this movie, as he was with the Wolverine and Logan, I think he would have set up an origin story so much better than what they did here. But regardless, I had a lot of fun watching this. It sucks, but it's like a fun suck. While I was joking about it before, I truly believe that this is the best version of Wolverine. His hair looks beautiful. It kind of makes sense more too, even with like some of the swoop. I don't know why I'm like obsessed with his hair. Lastly, Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth was just awesome. I really wish that they could have continued on that version, or like really just having him and Wolverine go at it for this whole movie, but whatever. He was still great. And I mean, it kind of gave us a small introduction of how Ryan Reynolds was a perfect choice to being Deadpool. It just was a Deadpool. The Bad. Did they run into some sort of insurance issue with Hugh Jackman over the course of the last couple of movies? It almost seemed like he wasn't allowed to wear real claws. They just CGI'd the shit out of them. On that topic, how did they shape Wolverine's claws perfectly? Like, how did they do that? Like, even in, some of the experimental part or what they were showing with the adamantium being put into him, his claws were bone claws that looked like jagged shit. Like, how did they become such beautifully sharp? Did they install them? Maybe it's just one of those things where I wouldn't have given a shit if like they had one of those lines being like, "Oh yes, that's Wolverine. His claws were shaped perfectly from adamantium during the procedure that we were able to sharpen the bone before grafting the adamantium." I don't know. It's just movie and comic book logic. Also, it was a stuffed ass story. Just so many things going on. And so many things going on not in the way that the other X-Men movies were able to finesse. Just give me Wolverine and Sabretooth. They had a lot of weird ass scene happenstances, like the alleyway with Gambit that just happened to have Sabretooth come there to take John Wraith's John Wraith. That character is just so dumb. That take his power or showing up or killing him or whatever. And then Wolverine making a surprise re-entrance after he denied Silver Fox and Stryker, walking out, but then he was at the other side with his... Watch some of those scenes. You're just like, what is this? It's just like, did you just edit this for the purpose just to, bring back the character? I don't know. That's stupid. The funny. This scene will never not be funny and will live rent-free in my head forever. Coming out of the extremely popular Kick-Ass, Matthew Vaughn has now stepped in to direct this origin story of X-Men, starring James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Kevin Bacon, and Jennifer Lawrence. J-Law. Walking Professor X has a relationship with awkward, blue-looking Mystique. Why is she a main character? I mean, you couldn't use any other character for J-Law, for any other character that would be more appropriate for these things. Well, they're friends. And then they become friends with Magneto, who's on the hunt for Sebastian Shaw. Professor X and Magneto formed the first version of the X-Men to stop Shaw and a whole bunch of missiles from destroying them. This is also where we see the philosophical divide of Professor X and Magneto, which splits them apart. The Good. A lot of great casting choices as the younger versions between Fassbender and McAvoy as just kind of those powerhouse characters. Also, the overall story centered around like the real world conflicts during that time really help in creating that believable world building that the X-Men and mutants exist, all the while still being kind of a comic book movie in a real world. The Bad. I mean, just look at this makeup job. Like, look at this. Beast looks like he came from like the Cats production. Like he just finished up the production and had to run over to the next set over. And Mystique looks like a volunteer at a face paint convention. Almost like makeup got better, but also just became stupid. Also, this might be that it's just like aged poorly, but some of the action scenes with the wire work and the blue screen, green screen is so blatant and just it's silly. The funny. Oh my God, that scream. It's just the best. From the director of Identity, 310 to Yuma, and Walk the Line, James Mangold. Come on down! With Hugh Jackman returning, along with Tao Okamoto, Rila Fukushima, and the wickedly talented
one and only
Hiroyuki Sanada. Yeah, I think I'm kind of getting better with some of these pronunciations. If not, don't say anything. Just let me be who I am. After the horrible last stand, Wolverine has become a wilderness bum. I mean, he probably smells like shit, like San Francisco, morning shit. The world is flipped upside down when Yukio finds him and brings him back to Japan only to be thanked and offered an ending to his pain by a man he saved back when the nuclear bombs fell, Yoshida, aka the Silver Samurai. Logan refuses but is infected by a literal robot bug that suppresses his mutant ability to heal, making him vulnerable. After a train ride, sketchy hotel, and a samurai battle, Wolverine is back to full form to protect Mariko from assassination. The good. I think Mangold knew what the audience wanted when he was creating a Wolverine movie in Japan. A Japanese cast? Ooh. Yeah, exactly. A Japanese cast. Thank God. I mean, speaking of which, the setting allowed for such beautiful backdrops for the character's journey, which made it a really good balance since it clearly took a lot of influence from the comic book issue Wolverine #1. Yes. Also, Hugh Jackman is always good, right? Everything he does is good. He's just so good because it's been a running long theme of this whole thing. That hair finally is starting to look appropriate, where it's still short, but it's almost like a cowlick. They make sense. They don't look like it's, this long hair, deliberate, super slicked back. I think it just looks good. The bad. I think at the time, everybody was just tired of mech suits being the instrument for character designs. So, I mean, why did Silver Samurai need to be a mech character? I don't know. You could have just done something completely different. It didn't have to be this gigantic character that also could have a flame sword that was adamantium that could, break through the indestructible metal. The funny. Okay, I gotta say that this Yakuza member takes the cake for the funniest things of the entire movie. Just look at this guy. Guess who's back? Back again. Ryan's back. Tell a friend. Well, don't tell that many friends. He's kind of in hot water. This was definitely right before we learned of who the real Bryan Singer is. In any case, we now have the combined forces of the original cast and the new cast. The Sentinels are killing mutants, and the only way to stop them is to change the past. Wolverine is sent back in time to stop an event from happening that will shape the X-Men's future. The good. The mix of the new and old cast was so appropriately mixed within the actual storytelling. The pacing from one section to the next really amplified the importance of the story unfolding. Also, you can tell when it's a Singer X-Men movie over the others. He takes his times with certain scenes and has an actual visual component that Bryan Singer uses. Also, they fixed Beast, and then also brought Mystique back to that kind of original look. Lastly, the Quicksilver scene obviously is amazing. The bad. The logic in Sentinels having zero metal, to prevent Magneto from being able to control them, then only to be manipulated by Magneto with metal inside the Sentinels. How does he know how to turn them on? How does he know how to control them? How does he know how to use their scanners or their weapons? Just by manipulating the metal. How does he know how to use? I don't know. I didn't get the funny. They literally got rid of the useless mutants from First Class in the best way possible by just claiming that they were experimented on and they're all dead. It's just what an excellent retcon. That was some funny writing right there. First live action film directed by Tim Miller, founder of Blur Studio. And of course, returning to the role from the amazing Wolverine or X-Men Origins Wolverine in the most appropriate fashion, Ryan Reynolds. This is the origin story of Deadpool, where he came from, how his mutant abilities started, and how he ended up looking like the inside of an Applewood sausage. Uncooked. Of course. The Good. For a first-time live-action director, Tim Miller hit it out of the park. Considering the pressure from the fans that loved that character that just got ruined in one of the movies to having their own origin story, that's just a lot of pressure that I think would take down a director. But for him, it seemed that he had a lot of fun, especially with like the rated R and the world he was able to build within that movie. Fourth wall breaking and coordination around the script and the size of like the coordination is actually something to marvel at. No pun intended. But seriously, try imagining how you would choreograph a scene with action, dialogue, character movement, speaking to the camera, and pacing. My head's about to explode. Lastly, say what you want about him, but Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. That's it. The Bad. I think in maybe 10 to 15 years, the difference between CGI and live action will be extremely noticeable. But I mean, that's a future problem, a future past problem, days of future past problem, whatever the fuck. The Funny. I love the journey and how this movie was made. The fact that the test footage was deliberately, or allegedly, leaked in order to get fans excited, forcing a studio to make it, and that Ryan continued to be an advocate through and through, even after the Wolverine Origins, is just a great way of getting a movie made, finally. Now we're in post Bryan Singer allegations, and man, you can tell. This movie was a split between Singer vision and studio control. I'll explain later. The movie is about the very first mutant that is unearthed during the 80s and is rallying other like-minded mutants to his cause. This is Apocalypse. The Good. I actually think that Oscar Isaac did an amazing job. It was weird, psychotic, and with the use of multiple voices and the multiple voice overlays, I think he came off as a pretty good villain just in general. So I don't think he gets enough credit for actually doing a really great job. I mean, we just all see him as Ivan Ooze and...
Smells like teenagers.
Also, the action scenes were great. They still keep that consistency to use the X-Men and like their powers and everything. The actual stunt work in X-Men Apocalypse was pretty nice. The Bad. Those super suits are fugly as fug. The design choice reminded me of cars transitioning from muscle to like everyday cars. You know, there's just like so many lines and unnecessary additions. Why did Apocalypse tattoo Angel's face? Just with random lines. Why the fuck? Why? Like, was it just like, hey, I need to make sure that you're my guy. You know, like I'm just gonna. He only did it to him. Nobody else. Nobody else got that. To add on to the Singer versus studio thing. On one hand, you have Singer's pacing. On the other hand, the studio needed to go larger. So you see that I feel like you see a constant battle between the two. The Funny. I just love watching Magneto lift things. Like just the fucking intense, like that kind of thing. He just does such a great job in every one of those movies. James Mangold is back for one last outing with our favorite Wolverine. It's the future. Now we have Old Man Logan, Colostomy Bag, Professor X, Stephen Merchant, and Little X-23. This is the last stand for Wolverine. Do you see what I did there last? Okay. He's old, not healing as much, and just wants to buy a boat for him and his friends to relax on. But the dream is shattered after Pierce comes looking for him and a little girl he took into his care. A lot of blood and screaming later, we find out that this little girl is Logan's daughter. Sort of. Trying to protect her and the mutant runaways, Wolverine has his last battle with himself. Sort of. And saves the group. He can finally rest. Sort of. The Good. Logan, like as the movie, is like a Johnny Cash song combined with The Last of Us. It just fits so beautifully in how they're able to take that journey and use Logan, all weaknesses, all powers, everything that he has. It was just an incredible send-off. Another is the choice to do the R rating after the Deadpool thing. The blood and the language and the screaming and the shit and all that kind of stuff plays so perfectly into like the Wolverine universe. And James Mangold kept the consistency from what he did with The Wolverine out to what he's doing here. Also, the choice not to go with how they depicted Old Man Logan within the comic books to what they're doing here felt like they used a lot of the influence, kind of the character position of the comic book, and then just gave it to the character as the appropriate part of the movie. They combined the two really well. The Bad. If you're wearing headphones at night, you don't want to wake up your neighbors and everything. The fact that they yell most of the entire movie will make you want to bleed out of your own ball. The funny. Why did the kids shave him? Why? Like, they didn't even say anything about, like, hey, you know, you're the Wolverine, like I saw you in the comic book, of the thing that we're all following for. They just shaved him. I'd be really weirded out if just somebody just at night shaved. I don't know. Weird. Directed by David Leitch. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds is in it, with an addition of Josh Brolin. Deadpool is back. Jealous that Logan stole the R rating and was able to die first, Deadpool makes it a point that he'll do the same thing. Basically, Deadpool saves a kid from being a future killer. The good. Ryan Reynolds was born for this role. The banter the cast gets into works in a way that I imagine the filmmakers were thinking about as they were actually filming for the editors. So they knew that they had to have certain shots, certain editing, pieces back and forth with them. Lastly, the action highlights each character's strengths and abilities the same way that every X-Men movie does. So it feels like the stunt team went out of the way to study the characters between Colossus and all of them, just to make sure that everybody have a specific highlight in the movie. The bad. Miller and Leitch definitely have a different way of coordinating scenes. You can feel the difference in tone and the difference in how it's presented by two different directors. So there's the consistency it's kind of like J.J. Abrams in his Star Wars movie to Ryan in his Star Wars movie. I know I'm just saying that the comparison, you can see that while you have the same characters and everything else, not the same movie. Also, I don't know if it's really that bad, but I like the old Colossus design. This new one just kind of seems a little too lean and, I don't know, weirdly disproportionate, which doesn't make sense. The funny. I think that the funniest thing about that movie is still the back and forth between Cable and Deadpool. That's just good writing. Simon Kinberg wrote and directed this. So this guy was actually a part of a whole bunch of other movies beforehand, but now they're going to be like, okay, well, he's ready to direct. Is he? Right? The answer is no, but sort of. It explains the weird scene behavior. You can write something, but actually having it translated onto screen is different. That's where that director, that's where that producer, that's where all those other people that are part of the movie come in. The X-Men are in space. Cosmic fart consumes Jean Grey, awakening the Phoenix in her. She is being pursued by the aliens from Signs. With the help of the X-Men and Magneto, they're able to defeat the aliens and free the Phoenix. I don't know, some shit. The good. Compared to the others, this actually isn't as bad. I mean, it's not as bad as you think. I actually think that Dark Phoenix is better than Apocalypse, which I guess is not really saying that much. I just don't think it's actually as bad as what people remembered. Still a stellar cast. They do a really, really good job at keeping that kind of momentum with the old cast into with the new cast. So, give it to them. Just give it to them. And again, Fassbender yelling and holding on to things. Always fun. I don't know if it was because that John Wick started becoming bigger, but they clearly use a lot of Wickisms into the action in the scene. I mean, just watch Magneto just kind of doing quick actions with his own magnetism. The bad. Oddly, weirdly, cringy ass writing. They just kind of seem so stereotypical within superhero movies. Emotions make you weak. No, they make me strong. You're just I mean, I wonder if there's every line that character says in every scene, in every movie, script book. Basically, it would tell you the line, and then it would tell you the movies that were in it, or maybe how many times it was said. I don't know. Come on. Somebody take that idea, roll with it. Also, I mean, with that oddly weird coordination in the writing, why did Jean just all of a sudden attack that helicopter and then freak out that Magneto was like, no, I can't have you near these people because you're just too dangerous. You're you just randomly came out and just you attack people. I mean, logically, that just in the movie, it didn't make it seem like she was being controlled by the Phoenix fart. It was more like she just did it. That makes sense. The story actually seems a little tamed compared to what the X-Men just went through. Essentially, defeat Apocalypse, and now they have aliens coming after them. The thing is, though, it may have been tamed, but it's kind of more along the lines of the X-Men and X2 grounded storytelling. Really is a low-effort studio blockbuster. I mean, look at the action, the CG, the pacing, lack of use with those actors, and even just the settings themselves. The whole battle scene between the park and the building was just weird. Weird. Why? Why? The funny. I gotta say that the way that the aliens ran made me feel weirdly uncomfortable and like uncontrollably happy. Like they had to put them on wires and they were like pretending to. I don't know. I don't get how Beast went from looking like a blue bear to the Wolf Man by the end of this. Also, what the fuck is this dude's mutant power? Is he just like a control hair man? Is his dreadlocks whips with knives or something like that? Like, does he? I don't understand. I don't get it. I will not be watching this again. It's between the New Mutants and Josh Trank's Fantastic Four that probably go for the worst garbage pieces of shit movie superhero adaptations of all time. And overall, whether or not you like the X-Men, it's really about seeing kind of the evolution from the movie perspective that we got to see from the early 2000s on to what is present day. Now we know that Marvel and the MCU are going to create a new version and try to induct them in some way, shape, or form, maybe even with Deadpool and Wolverine. I think the one thing that we have to keep remembering is that at its core, they still were great movies, even with the ups and downs. And they also continued on using those characters that they created in the movies and then kind of taking the comic book stuff and sprinkling in a little bit of character development. Now that Deadpool and Wolverine is coming up, I think this is a perfect time to be able to go back, watch all of them, kind of catch up and, get yourself back into it, even though the Wolverine that we're seeing in this one is not the same thing as the Logan one, blah, blah, whatever. And Deadpool has kind of been a consistent fun time. So hopefully they'll continue on that trend and maybe give us like some sort of preview into what they're going to try to do with the X-Men within the Marvel universe. Just please stop milking it the way that you're doing with the TV shows. It's fucking terrible. It's so... What did you think? What was your favorite X-Men movie of them all? And why? Was I the only one bothered by Wolverine's hair? Love to know. Thank you again for watching all the way through, or thanks just for watching in general. I've been Josh, and this has been an X-Men overview. All right. Bye.